Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Morning Report. My name is Willie Lawson, and today we are kicking off a brand new three-part series on the teachings of Sowell, Williams, and Douglas. We begin with Thomas Sowell, a man who has dedicated more than a half a century to clearing away the fog of economic nonsense. He's not just an economist, he's a truth teller with a pen, the kind who can write one sentence that destroys an entire ideology. Sowell has been called the greatest living economist in America. And yet most Americans know his words not from classrooms, but from his books, his columns, and his sharp one-liners that slice through the excuses like a hot knife through butter. This episode we're gonna call Economics Without Illusions, because that's exactly what Thomas Sowell gives us. The world as it is, not as politicians want to pretend it is. So by the end of today, you'll understand why Thomas Sowell's teachings matter now more than ever. Thomas Sowell was born in 1930 in Gastonia, North Carolina. Orphaned at a young age, he was raised in Harlem, New York. And living through the Great Depression, he didn't exactly come up in privilege. He worked. He struggled. He lived what he later called life in the real world. Thomas Sowell dropped out of high school. He worked odd jobs. He also served in the Marine Corps during the Korean War. After his service, he got his GED. He earned a scholarship to Harvard and a master's at Columbia. Oh, and a PhD from the University of Chicago under Milton Friedman. That journey tells you something that Sowell wasn't spoon-fed the elite thinking. He had to fight his way into the halls of power. And once inside, he started calling their bluff. One of his most famous lines is this: the first lesson of economics is scarcity. There is never enough of anything to fully satisfy all those who want it. The first lesson of politics is just to disregard the first lesson of economics. That's Sowell's in one shot. Economists know scarcity is real. Politicians pretend it isn't. And ordinary Americans get stuck with the bills for that illusion. If Thomas Sowell had one principle written in stone, it would be this: incentives drive behavior. Incentives drive behavior. You reward something, you get more of it. You punish something, you get less of it. It's simple. It's obvious. And yet ignored by almost every policy debate in Washington. Sowell puts it plainly. Much of the social history of the Western world over the past 3 decades has involved replacing what worked with what sounded good. Think about welfare. Before the Great Society, what I call Johnson's War on the Poor, Black families were steadily closing the income gap. Marriage rates were high. Education was improving. And after welfare programs ballooned, dependency increased. Fatherlessness skyrocketed. crime surged. So what sounded good ending up destroying communities. Sowell wrote this: the real minimum wage is zero. If you're not worth the minimum that the government has decreed, you don't get a job. That one hits hard because what do politicians do when they raise the minimum wage? They pat themselves on the back for helping workers. But Sowell looks at the trade-off. Young people, minorities, and the unskilled are priced out of jobs. They never get the first chance. They never learn the skills, and many never recover. Thomas Sowell understands something that's been erased from our politics, that intentions don't matter. Outcomes do. This was a come to Jesus moment for me personally. Thomas Sowell says there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. And that's not just a clever line, it's a worldview. Politicians love promising solutions. In poverty, in racism, in climate change, they act like problems can be erased with enough money and enough programs. Sowell's reply? It's impossible. The only question is, which trade-off are you willing to accept? Take rent control. Rent control is really popular right now. Politicians sell it as protecting tenants. It sounds compassionate. Sowell broke it down. Fewer landlords build apartments because it's not profitable. The existing landlords stop maintaining buildings. The rich and well-connected snag the rent-controlled units. The poor and the newcomers, they're locked out. The result? Housing shortages, crumbling apartments, and the exact opposite of what they called affordable housing. That's Thomas Sowell's genius. He doesn't just say the policies are bad. He shows how they hurt the very people they claim to help. He wrote this: the welfare state is not really about welfare of the masses. It's about the egos of the elites. In other words, it's not about solving problems. It's about politicians feeling good about themselves while the poor get poorer. This was a come to Jesus moment for me personally. Thomas Sowell says there are no solutions. There are only trade-offs. And that's not just a clever line, it's a worldview. Politicians love promising solutions. In poverty, in racism, in climate change, they act like problems can be erased with enough money and enough programs. Sowell's reply? It's impossible. The only question is, which trade-off are you willing to accept? Take rent control. Rent control is really popular right now. Politicians sell it as protecting tenants. It sounds compassionate. Sowell broke it down. Fewer landlords build apartments because it's not profitable. The existing landlords stop maintaining buildings. The rich and well-connected snag the rent-controlled units. The poor and the newcomers, they're locked out. The result? Housing shortages, crumbling apartments, and the exact opposite of what they called affordable housing. That's Thomas Sowell's genius. He doesn't just say the policies are bad. He shows how they hurt the very people they claim to help. He wrote this: the welfare state is not really about welfare of the masses. It's about the egos of the elites. In other words, it's not about solving problems. It's about politicians feeling good about themselves while the poor get poorer. Scarcity is the bedrock of Sowell's teaching. It sounds so simple. It feels silly to repeat. Resources are limited. Human desires are unlimited. But forget this, and you'll end up living in a fantasy. He wrote this: the fact that resources are limited is what makes the study of economics necessary. For those of you who are old enough to remember, the gas shortages of the 1970s are a perfect case. Politicians froze prices. They were thinking that they were helping consumers. Here's what happened. Gas stations ran dry. People waited in lines for hours. Black markets popped up. Scarcity didn't disappear. It got worse. Let's fast forward to now. Student loan forgiveness. Politicians pretend debt just vanishes. But scarcity is real. Somebody pays. Either taxpayers or inflation eats away at everybody's pocket. Sowell would cut through the rhetoric the moment money isn't free. It's just shifted. Scarcity is also why socialism always collapses. The planners think they can replace millions of price signals with a committee. But scarcity still exists. And without prices to guide, delusions and resources are wasted. Shortages spread and freedom vanish. That's why Sowell warns when politicians promise free healthcare or free college or free housing. Remember this: nothing is free. Scarcity is real, and somebody pays. Now, Thomas Sowell is also fearless when it comes to race. While others peddled grievance, politics, he told uncomfortable truths. He said this: racism is not dead, but it is on life support. It's kept alive by politicians, the race hustlers, and people who get a sense of superiority by denouncing others as racist. That line sums up his approach, calls it like it is. He studied cultures from around the world, tracing how different groups succeeded or struggled, not because of oppression or privilege alone, but because of habits and skills and choices. In his books, Ethics, America, and Black Rednecks and White Liberals dismantle the myths that keep people trapped in victimhood. Sowell showed that so many, quote, Black problems in America were actually inherited from a cultural pattern of the white underclass in the South. Poverty, violence, broken families, not from slavery itself. He forced readers to rethink what they thought they knew. And his solution wasn't government. It was freedom. It was responsibility. It's opportunity. So why does all this matter in 2025? Because the illusions haven't gone away. If anything, they've multiplied. Politicians still sell free benefits with no mention of costs. Activists still judge policies by intentions instead of results. Elites still pat themselves on the back while ignoring the damage. Sowell's clarity is the antidote. He reminds us incentives matter, trade-offs matter, scarcity matters. If you forget these truths, you'll destroy families, If you forget these truths, you'll destroy cities. If you forget these truths, you'll destroy even nations. Remember them, and you'll find a path to freedom and prosperity. One last soul line to leave you ringing in your ears. It takes considerable knowledge just to realize the extent of your own ignorance. That's humility. That's wisdom. And it's a reminder that ideology can never replace reality. Ladies and gentlemen, this episode of the Morning Report is brought to you by 7 Weeks Coffee, pro-life coffee supporting life with every purchase, and by listeners like you at Patreon. So when you support us, you support independent conservative media. The link to 7 Weeks Coffee is in the description. The link to our Patreon is also in the description. Thank you. Okay, Thomas Sowell is more than an economist. He is a voice of reason at a time of illusions. He calls out the frauds, he strips away the pretty words, and leaves us staring at reality. Write this down. Incentives matter. Trade-offs matter. Scarcity matters. Now, these just aren't theories. They are laws of human life. And if you ignore them, the cost will crush you. If you respect them, you can build a society that actually works. This is why Thomas Sowell matters. That's why his words are still relevant, still powerful, and still very much necessary. Now, the next time we continue the series with Walter E. Williams, Sowell's friend, his intellectual brother, one of the fiercest defenders of liberty this nation has ever known. And you don't want to miss it. Until then, my name is Willie Lawson, and this is the Morning Report. Stay strong, stay free, keep your eyes open.